Welcome to episode 11 of the Humble Pursuit podcast. Actually, this is episode 11, take 2. I am Bill, and I'm joined with Thomas and Tyler, the co-host. Hello, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Howdy.
So we did this like 2 weeks ago. We did this awesome number 11 episode. And the audio on it was trash.
No, the episode was so good that we had an echo so that everybody could hear it twice. You know, the first time, and then when it echoed back
trash.
at them.
It was Tyler's fault.
It was Tyler's fault.
Right.
Yes.
And if we sound silky smooth today, it's because Thomas.
It's because we got the right equipment for the first time.
This may not be episode 11. This actually may be episode 1. We may just throw out the first 10.
Let's talk about how we got here, though. It's been 10 months since we started. This is a little bit of expectations versus reality. Now, when we started, my expectation was, hey, I like to hear myself talk. Let's start a podcast.
That sounds right.
And that's what happened.
That's
10 months later.
Legit what happened. So we're 10 months later. My expectation was you start a podcast. It's going to be easy. The equipment is going to handle itself. The recording, hey, that's got to be simple. Media, you can get it out there on social media. They will not restrict your accounts at all so that you have to buy ads so that you can get viewers or anything like that, because that wouldn't happen in today's society. Guests would be easy. Quality of the recording, simple. We're going to record once every 2 weeks. So we should be on episode 20.
I haven't heard one of those things hasn't happened yet.
Not a single one, dude.
Our guests have been good.
Our guests have been amazing. They have been a lot better than the equipment.
Right.
Well,
equipment,
me,
right,
yeah,
right.
than myself. You know.
Yes, we've had some struggles.
So here's the reality: is we recorded episode 11 the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I object to Tyler saying it wasn't trash. The audio was trash.
The audio was trash. The content was
content was on
from what
point.
I remember, because you couldn't hear it.
But
So,
yeah, you can't hear it. So it came to this. We're at this fork in the road, and we'd done 11 episodes, and every single one of them had a audio, and then we started doing video, but I don't think we had any video problems yet. That was the next problem that was going to happen.
We'll figure that out.
And ultimately, we came to that fork in the road, and Tyler said it best when he said, if we're going to continue, we need to get new equipment and real podcast equipment. And my response to Tyler was, I do not like the word if.
But he said that like 5 text messages after I'd used the word if. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Wrong thread. But he clarified, and, here we are.
Now we got it. Now we're going to test it out.
So anyway, if you've made it this far into the episode, I'm not going to say this is a throwaway episode, because we're going to do something pretty awesome here in a second. However, we do not have a guest on it today.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
How come when I say do not, I always say donut? Does anybody know?
What's on your mind?
Is that something?
So what are we going to do that's awesome today?
Well, what we're going to do that is awesome today is when this whole thing was just in our mind, there is a bug crawling on your audio video thing right there.
He's fine.
Okay. When this whole thing was in conception 12 months ago, 11 months ago, the first thing that I did was I made a list of 18 guests that I wanted to have on, and I had a blurb after each of their names so that we could talk about them. The first guest that we wanted to have on was a friend of ours named Mark Brightbill. Thomas, why don't you tell us how you know Mark?
Well, I live beside him, for one. That's the way I met him, I guess, the first time. But I do work at his shop. He had a machine shop here in town. So we worked together, but it really was more. I would come over when he had a problem, and we'd talk for an hour, and then I would reboot his computer, and that was pretty much how it worked out. But
here's your bill.
No, so yeah, I mean, Mark's just been was just one of those guys that you just like to be around. You know, he was our neighbor. We did some projects together, but he's been through a lot, and he was just one of those guys you like to have in your life.
Did you know Mark, Tyler, before we started building the what do you even call that thing that we built?
Shed.
Hangar, Quonset.
Quonset hut from Hades.
It was not fun.
No, I didn't know.
I didn't know him, and what was it, about 3 years ago?
Yeah.
So 3 years ago, Thomas comes up with this bright idea that he sees this Quonset hut fully disassembled on this guy's lawn. And it's like, hey, you know what we ought to do? We ought to put that together for him.
Well, it wasn't a Quonset hut. It was
What was it?
a shed.
It was a shed.
But
It was a big shed.
It's a half circle dome. It's called a
Metal.
Quonset, but that's okay.
That makes it
It's
sound
like a hangar.
No.
No, it's
yeah,
big. No,
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And there was already a concrete slab poured. It just needed to get built,
small. Right.
but it wasn't getting built. And Tom
Right.
saw need.
So anyway, I met Mark at that time, and we started building that. I think that took us 2.5 years to complete.
It took us every bit of 2 years. Yes.
Every bit
it
of
did.
2 years plus.
I think you should give a little context, because if Mark was involved in actually being able to build it, it would have been done.
Probably a month, 2 months.
But the reason why Mark wasn't able to help was because he was suffering from cancer.
Right.
And man, that's where I got to know him, and to see him, it was probably painful for him to watch us make so many mistakes and not be able to just do it himself. But
Tyler did make a lot of mistakes.
He did. He did.
Yes.
There was only about 50,000 bolts that had to be put in on that thing. But it also is a testament to who he is, that he had so many people who wanted to show up and help put that together for him.
Well, when we started that, I stalked him on the social medias and, found out a little bit of his story. He had childhood leukemia, I believe.
I think he was a teenager.
A teenager,
when they found it.
18-ish,
Yep.
16 to 18, somewhere
Yep.
in there. And then at about the age of 48-ish, he had another bout with cancer.
Yep.
And there was a goal in mind when he went into treatment, and that goal was to walk his daughter down the aisle.
Yep.
Which is exactly what I wanted to talk about in the podcast, because there was it was a viral video of him getting stronger and then walking his daughter down the aisle.
Well,
for her
the
wedding.
thing, I was doing fine. So his funeral was last week, and I was doing fine for the most part in that funeral until the pastor made the comment that, Mark had told him that when you make your daughter a promise, you keep it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was like,
And he did.
but I mean, that was who the guy was. I mean, there was no amount of cancer, no amount of treatment, no amount of nothing was going to keep him from doing that. And that was really the conversation we had of why we wanted him on here in the first place, was what does it take to have that? Everybody tells you it's okay not to do it, but this is going to happen type of will, and that's something other people need to hear about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to know him over those 3 years or however long it took us to put all those bolts in. And I didn't know him as a healthy person, but as he was there every time, and he did all that he could every time. And he would work until he was worn out. And that may have just been walking down to where we were building it. But I also got to see the love he had of his family, the love he had for his children, for his grandchildren, for his animals, the care that he took for us, the hospitality of his family. Just a strong testament to having urgency and purpose in your years, even if they're short.
Yep. Yeah, Mark was 55
years old
when he passed,
left.
and you think, how many people do you know that have lived a lot longer than 55 years and haven't packed the same amount of life in that he did? I mean, that was, we went fishing a few times together. He's a big fisherman. He taught me how to fish, really, to be honest, because I'm still not a good fisherman. But
you're not
tried to teach me.
You're not good at a lot of things.
And
I have a list.
And this was last year. We were in the car, and we were going to the lake, and we were going to go fishing because he was having a hard time hooking stuff up. And so I was kind of running stuff for him, and this was in the middle of all the COVID, and so I had a mask on. I had a handkerchief that I was like, hey, I'm happy to wear this, because he was in a place he didn't need to be catching COVID. I mean, he had a lot of complications and was not healthy. And I said, are you sure you want to go? Are you sure you're comfortable? And he just said, Thomas, if we want to go fishing, we're going to go fishing. And, this is a guy who at that time was, essentially dying from cancer. And he just said, there's things that are worth doing. There's relationships that are worth investing in. And I'm not going to live in fear. And that's something that I'm never going to forget, that conversation we had on the way to the lake. Because if anybody had a reason to hole up and be scared, it was Mark. And he didn't. So that's something I'll always remember about him.
Something that stands out when you said, practically he was dying. Well, we all are. And I think he probably lived in light of that. And we want to. It's like, we're all kind of have that condition where we are going to die. We're all on our path to that. And what are we going to fit into those 55 years, those 65, 75, 85, living each day? What? Tell me about the funeral. I wasn't able to be there. Is there anything that stood out?
Well, getting off topic here, I was not able to have a long beachfront walk hand in hand with Thomas like you had with him the other day.
It was mountaintop though.
It was mountaintop?
Yeah.
Okay. But I did sit on his lap. For part of it.
Yeah. So speaking of off topic.
So off topic.
Where are we going here?
No, I know. I just wanted to throw that in there. But I don't even know. No, the funeral was it was a beautiful testament to a life shortened, but a life well lived, with purpose, with urgency. There was those moments in it where awesomeness leaked out of the corners of my eyeballs, and man, I'm just grateful to have known the man.
Yeah,
I think I'm a better person today for interacting with him.
Well, and that's what I told Elaine. We were sitting right in the middle, and I just said, he's just one of those guys that he's just different. You know a lot of people, you meet a lot of people, even friends that you have, but then you meet somebody like Mark, and it's just different. I mean, he just impacted people in a different way. And I think it was just the way he lived. I mean, he wasn't trying to be different. He just was inherently different,
right?
Which I think is what we're all called to do in the first place. But he is such an example of just living that without trying.
Yeah, it didn't seem like I didn't get to know him super well, but it wasn't that his sage wisdom or a quick wit. I mean, maybe he had all of that, but what I noticed was just joy. He just seemed quick to smile, and that probably comes from being filled with gratitude. He did seem to have an aura about him that was just very pleasant, life-giving to be around. And I think we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to, I've got kids who are becoming teenagers and are really trying to find their identity, who they are. And I think one thing I'd want them to know, and something that Mark had, was just, if you smile, you're going to go places. You have a lot of friends. If you have joy, if you bring that to other people, that's about the best gift you can give them.
Yeah, I was thinking of one word. If I had one word to sum up Mark, it would be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
He was authentic. You knew where you stood, you knew how he felt, and you knew how I felt about you. I don't think there was any time in his life for not being authentic, because when you get down to it.
Sure.
I wanted to read a couple of quotes from that the family picked out. Maybe Mark picked these out. The first one is by somebody, I can't pronounce her name, Barbara De Angelis. Does that ring a bell with anybody? But I think this kind of sums up a lot of our conversation. Is love and kindness are never wasted. They always make a difference. They bless the one who receives them, and they bless you, the giver. And that's how I was always received at their house, with love and kindness. Then on the last day of our build, I'll never forget, Mark hobbled over. I shouldn't say hobbled. He came over slowly and handed me a drill that I had been using the whole time. And this was not a cheap go to Harbor Freight drill. And said, "Here, you've been using this. I want you to have it. And I just thought that was a neat token of the project.
Yep.
And then the last quote, and Thomas, I think that you will relate to this well. We don't know how strong we are until being strong is the only choice. Bob Marley.
Yeah.
You know, we heard about you in episode 3 or 4 and the struggles you went through and hospital visit, the way to the hospital.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, and you don't know until you're pushed to
Right.
that limit. You know, I know when I went through my life-changing car accident, my mom commented one time, is like, I don't know how you can be strong right now, so strong right now. And I'm just like, that's my only choice.
What's the other option?
Be
Right,
strong
exactly.
or leave.
Right.
That's my choice,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
And so.
Yep. And that's, I mean, if you asked any of us, well, how would you handle with Hodgkin's lymphoma? You know, how would you handle, and you just, I think I'd be strong. I mean, you just have no idea. Right. And all the complications, all the things that you saw him go through, and you just realize, I mean, how would you handle that? And the bottom line is you don't know until it's the only option to handle it. And Absolutely. I think a lot of people see the option of giving up as an option, you know, and the back to the really kind of where we started with walking his daughter down the aisle, that there was no option. The option is I find a way to get up and make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the only option. So you're as strong as you have to be to make that work, you know, and I thought that was great. They put that in the funeral because that's exactly
never out of the fight.
Right.
I like that.
Right.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Tyler, you look like you have a deep, serious thought, and I see Jimmy John sandwiches. So
this is going to be a short episode. There's
Excellent.
lunch waiting for us. This is a Shakespeare quote. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. You know, we can wait until we have that diagnosis to become great, to become strong. What about making those choices now? You know, I think we do rise to the occasion. I think when we get that diagnosis, we will. So why not rise to it right now, just as an ordinary dad, husband, brother? Like, why not step into it? Why not wait for the diagnosis?
I mean, that sums up the conversations that we've had over and over again between us. The urgency of life, you know. The only day guaranteed is yesterday.
And like what Mark stood for, so like you said, so the stuff that he stood for, that's something that we shouldn't waste. I mean, we've had that experience. He gave that to us whether he knew it or not. And so now that we've been given that, it's ours to do something with. And so if we're not applying that today before we get our diagnosis, if we're not applying that every day we wake up into the people that we love and the relationships that we have, we're doing a disservice to Mark and to the people like him that have showed us that this is the gift. This is what is available to you. And if you're not going to take it, well, I mean, that's on you, you know? So I couldn't agree more. We got to take what he stood for and the lessons we learned through a life like that and say, well, I'm going to turn around and apply it to people I know right now. I'm not going to wait for that.
You gonna read the Jack London quote? That fits in with this, right? Should we do it? Read it. It really fits in.
I ran across this on somewhere, and it says,
Looking at puppies on the internet.
I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than it should be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy and permanent planet. The function of a man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days trying to prolong them. I shall use my time.
Well, absolutely.
Bang.
Absolutely.
I like the dry rot. Have you guys ever seen tires, rubber, that's been succumbed to dry rot?
Yeah, there's a couple on Bill's truck right now.
No, I think Bill.
I think it's on.
They're opposite.
Oh, right. I mean, yeah.
But like you can see at farm equipment auctions, tires that look pristine. You know, it's just like it's got tread and everything. It's just been on some implement, but it's been sitting in a lot. It hasn't been used. And then you take it to the field and start using it, and that's when the like chunks just start coming off, and it just looks pristine. And it's like it didn't get used. And then now when it's finally getting put to work, it just falls apart, and it gets no mileage. So you think by preserving, by sitting there not being used, it's going to be useful. But that dry rot in rubber is I'd rather be like burnt out like a tire, actually being put to use. So that line really stood out to me.
Yeah, I like in talking, and we've been talking about Mark a little bit, but that line of the function of a man is to live, not to exist. That's the one that stuck out to me, because I mean we're all striving to live, longer. We're all striving to just prolong, and you get into existing at that point, and it's like we weren't called to exist. We were called, when we're here, we're called to make an impact. We're called to love people. We're called to live and interact with this life. It's a dynamic, vivid thing that we're a part of. We're not just here to just exist until we can't exist any longer.
Best way to do that, we always come back to it, is in community. The way we're going to do that is by challenging each other, and I don't think we can do any of the stuff we've talked about in isolation.
Absolutely not.
And so if any of this resonates, the way to keep that going is by walking with other men.
Or if you are a female listening to this, you can walk with other women too.
Sure. Along the beach or up a mountain.
On the beach, hand in hand. I really wanted to see a picture of you two walking off into the sunset
I did
together.
take some pictures at the top.
Did you?
I mean, not of
Like
the
selfies?
two of us.
Like big selfies of you two?
You need a selfie stick for Thomas.
Yes!
Get way out there.
I think that was an insult. I can't tell what that was.
Was it?
It wasn't a wide frame. It's a tall frame.
All right. Any parting words, gentlemen?
Silence.
Silencio.
No, just make it count. Like you said, don't wait for the diagnosis. Don't wait for things to crash before you start picking up the pieces. Take action on it right now.
And don't wait to invite people on the show, because he could have imparted some stuff more than us, just our memory of his legacy. So those people who are in your life that you want to pour into, you might not have them to pour into for a long time. So not only live your own life to its fullest, but help other people live their life to the fullest, because you don't know how long they'll be here either.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not going to go through our normal plugs at the end. Just if you're listening to this, you found us. We have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, YouTube channel. Hopefully this will make it up. Some's kind of our motto is never settle, never give up, live life with urgency to the fullest and in abundance. Face your legacy every day. The only day guaranteed is yesterday. And in lieu of my standard closing, as Mark would say, love you, miss you, mean it, bye.